Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today is the first day of a brand new unit, and we are talking about percents. Now, this is a brand new unit, but it has a lot of connections to the last unit that we did, which was all about proportions. Go ahead and set up on page 71 of your notebook, this page, and today's date should be 12/2/13. This is Monday's homework. It's due Tuesday. And your heading is solving percent questions with the percent proportion. Our goal is simply that I can use the percent proportion to solve basic percent problems. And we're going to talk about what the percent proportion is and how much easier it can make your life. So let's go ahead and jump right into that. There's a phrase that I like to use when I'm talking about percents that is kind of a little, I don't know, it's kind of this half song thing, I guess you could call it. And I'm going to make you say it over and over and over and over again in class until it gets really stuck in your head. And it's this right here. Okay, so is to of as percent is to 100. Say it with me. And don't just pretend to do it. Sit there and say it with me. Is to of as percent is to 100. If you've ever learned in language arts class about analogies, this format of this little sing-song thing will be familiar. Imagine if I said hat is to head as glove is to, what would you say? Hopefully you don't say foot. I think you're all smarter than that. Glove is to hand. So this kind of format of writing something is to, as, is to, that means we're dealing with an analogy. An analogy does a really good job of comparing different things. So in this case, we are comparing the different parts of a percent question. Excuse me. Another way to write an analogy is with colons. Is, this single colon means is to, of, this double colon means as, percent is to 100. So the first half of our analogy is and of, and we can use that to set up a fraction. Is to, of, as, that's going to give us an equal sign, percent is to 100. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is the percent proportion, and it is incredibly important. Whatever strategy you want to use to memorize this is fine. If you want to just memorize the proportion itself, okay. If you do better with something like a sentence or a little song to remember something, make up a song to this saying. For is to of, as percent is to 100. For me, it just helps to say it to a rhythm. Whatever it takes, you have to memorize this proportion, because everything we do for the next 2 weeks is going to be based on this proportion, okay? So let's go ahead and look at how we would actually use this. Go ahead and go to the next page of your notebook. It should be page 72. Don't forget to put the date. And our first example asks us to find 60% of 42. So I am going to remember that my percent proportion is to of, as, percent is to 100. That 100 is always there when you're dealing with percent questions. If you're dealing with just a regular proportion question like similar triangles, that 100 is not going to be there. But for this unit, for percents, that 100 is always there. So now we just have to fill in the other pieces of the percent proportion. The percent is really easy. It's the number right next to the percent symbol, guys. So that's going to go over 100. And now I have to set up the second half. I have of 42. That means that my 42 goes in the of position, 42. Another way some people like to think of this is part to whole. Okay, the part goes on top, the whole goes on bottom. So if I'm finding 60% of 42, 42 is my whole. So that's going to go right down there. And then I have a variable. I'm going to use x in this case. See? At this point, it's simply a proportion that you have to solve. And you know how to solve proportions. You find the cross products. X times 100 is 100x. 42 times 60, hang on. 6 times 2 is 12, carry the 1. 6 times 4 is 24, 25. Should be 2,520, and I hope I did that mental math correctly. Then I'm going to have to solve this proportion by using my upside down t and dividing by 100. When I divide by 100, I end up with 25.20, which tells us that 25.20 is 60% of 42. So that's our answer. Let's try another one. This time, I'm finding 120% of 30. So I have my percent proportion that I need to set up. There's one fraction, there's another. I know my 100 is always going to go there. And my percent this time is 120. And I have an of here, of 30. That will go down here, and I have a variable. I'm going to use cross multiplication to solve this. I'm going to get 100x. 30 times 120 is going to be 3,600 or 3,600. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 100 in order to find out what my x is. And I get that x equals 36. So 36 is 120% of 30. Hopefully this is making a fair amount of sense to you guys. I'm going to do just a handful more examples. And this time I'm going to be asking you for different things. So instead of saying finding a percent of a number, now I'm going to be looking for the percent. Remember, my percent proportion is to of, as percent is to 100. And I need to fill in the different parts of that proportion. My 100 is always going to be the same. And I don't have a percent. That's what I'm looking for. What percent? So that's my variable. And I have to figure out which position my 40 and my 16 go in. I have of 40 and I have is 16. So 40 is going to go in the denominator of that first fraction. 16 is going to go in the numerator. And you can actually make your lives a little bit easier here, guys, by simplifying before you cross multiply. I can simplify by dividing the top and the bottom by the same number. I'll divide them both by 4, and I get 4 over 10. And actually, I could simplify this even further by dividing both of them by 2. So I'll divide 4 by 2, and I'll get 2. 10 by 2 is 5. That makes my cross multiplication a little bit easier. 2 times 100 is 200. 5 times x is 5x. And to solve this equation, I'm going to divide by 5 and end up with 40 equals x. So 40 is my percent. 40% of 40 is 16. See how this is all working? One more. Actually, you know what? I think I'm running out of time, so I don't want to do that one for you. I'm just going to give you your reflection question now instead of making the video longer. And I want you to find out 16 is what percent of 46? Use your percent proportion, guys, and tell me your answer in Edmodo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.